Find us on the web at smacology.42web.io. There you can find our latest episode, or you can support the podcast by following our affiliate links at the top of the page. You can even buy some awesome Smacking Off merchandise. Again, that is smacology.42web.io.
We're here at Commonwealth Stadium, representing for the Kentucky Wildcats, right against Georgia Bulldogs, right? And I'm live here, and there's fun and excitement going on. I know you can see that. This is Smacking Off, the podcast.
Hi, we're Fiverr, a global marketplace connecting individuals and businesses with freelancers offering thousands of digital services. Graphic design, web development, video editing, e-commerce marketing. You name it, there's a professional freelancer ready to make it happen. Filter your search by the service needed, budget, timeline, and boom! Fiverr provides a list of talented freelancers to meet your specific needs. Always know what you'll pay up front. No hourly rates, just project-based pricing. And because payment isn't released until you approve the work, you can rest assured that you'll be satisfied with the quality and get exactly what you want. Our support team is always available to answer questions or offer assistance when you need it. With the whole world of freelance talent at your fingertips, what might you achieve? Join today and find out. Fiverr. It starts here.
Holloway, the leading rusher for Oklahoma, almost 5.5 a carry, has -8 on 5 rushes. Home run ball.
And now,
Smacking Off the podcast.
What's up, guys?
What's
How's
up?
everybody doing?
Going on.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to Smacking Off the podcast. Our producer, Doug Phillips, and Ed Scrivener, and Dr. Balls. So, what a ruling from the NCAA, and then we got golf. What do y'all want to talk about?
We got to start with Michigan, man,
Oh yeah,
because it's been a little while since this came down, but we haven't podcast during that time. So
that's it. That's a beautiful hoodie. That's fucking fantastic. It was almost beautiful as that graphic I just saw. That thing blew my mind. It exploded and turned into 60 psychedelic, and I'm not even high.
So what's going on at Michigan? Would you rather Sean talk about this first, Ed?
Well, I mean, we got put on 3 years probation. I guess an undisclosed fine. A couple of assistants were given show cause, which is sort of like probation before judgment. And not that I'd know, but and some recruiting restrictions that were not.
We want to know how many scholarships are reduced. That's what we want to know, and we didn't get that.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression that was it. So,
But and then for our listener, this is football we're talking. We haven't delved into basketball. So this is for the Michigan football program, and this is just the first. This is before your guy Connor Spygate Scallions guy. This is the stuff from the COVID blackout period, correct?
that's right.
So there may be more coming.
Well, we know there's for sure more coming because the NCAA director said that they haven't got in on Harbaugh yet, right? So Harbaugh, even though they declined to say that he was uncooperative, they also said that in itself was a separate investigation.
Now, so it depends what they find with respect to who knew what.
Now, I just think it's hilarious. I mean, talk about how slow this is. This is stuff from 19 and 20, and here it is 24. So, when will we see the stuff from last fall and maybe 22, 4 years from now? So that whether that be 27 or 28? I mean,
if the NCAA has any authority at that point.
Also true. Yeah.
I'm not worried. We got a natty late in my life.
There you go.
So far.
They're not taking that away.
They might not, but there'll definitely be an asterisk next to it for sure.
I think that the governing bodies, the presidents of the universities, are going to want some kind of oversight, no matter what you call it or who it comes from. Now, if they create their own oversight, which would be the foxes running the hen house, then it'd be real interesting, and it'd look like the '80s for the whole NCAA. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did see the game. So, I mean, to Ed's point, I mean, Michigan won the games in the field. So we saw it happen. I'm not one for revisiting history, but this does, I mean, with all this extra kind of off the field stuff, Ed, you have to admit there's a bit of a pall or a black eye on the program, do you not?
Maybe, yeah. I'm still in a state of euphoria, so
okay, that's fair.
And I never claim to be the most objective person when it comes to Michigan. So, but it could be if the SEC and the Big Ten end up running the whole show, they could take the position that okay, if one of our member schools gets caught doing some stuff, we're going to take a big chunk of your money.
Sure.
Like real money.
Yeah, like the TV money.
Yeah, because let's just say Michigan got fined, I don't know, $500,000. We'll just use that number.
Sure.
I don't know if it's true, but if it was something in the millions of dollars, it probably would have leaked. But let's say it's $500,000. That's chump change to Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Ten for just football is bringing in what, 28 or 34 million a school, TV money wise.
That's about right.
Yeah, so I mean, $500K to you and I is a lot of money, but when you're bringing in 34 million, that's kind of a drop in the bucket. And I don't think Harbaugh cares. He got his tattoo the other day. He kept the word on that.
Was he at the spring game?
I didn't see that, but I did see he got his tattoo 15-0 national champions. And I don't think he cares. I mean, he's a always looking ahead guy, and he's out in LA trying to right the Chargers ship. So, and I don't think we'll ever see him back coaching college football again.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
He knew when he was leaving, he wasn't coming back, didn't he?
Yeah, it's very similar to the Pete Carroll, when he left to go to Seattle. Like, we didn't expect him to ever. And I don't, at his age now, I know he no longer has a job in the NFL, but I would be very shocked if Pete Carroll took a gig. So,
with Harbaugh early on, when he first came in, I thought this guy's going to win a national championship. And then I don't know how many years went by, they couldn't get past Ohio State. I mean, it was a good product. It was a good product, but it wasn't a great product. And I just finally got to the point where I did not believe that he could do it.
Given his stubbornness, I was impressed with the fact that he took a look in the mirror after the COVID year where they were terrible and changed a lot of things.
I think he definitely upgraded the talent that Michigan needed to be competitive compared to his predecessor that was there. And rightfully so. Michigan's a blue blood program in college football. They shouldn't be, the Brady Hoke years were laughable, 7-5 and 8-4 and 6-6.
When Brady Hoke said he would walk to Ann Arbor for the job, he didn't suspect at the time that he was going to end up walking back to San Diego. So a few detours along the way.
Yeah. So despite me not being a fan of Michigan, it is nice that they're back and sort of relevant. We'll see how the program goes forward, but more good teams is always better for the game as a whole. So
Sean's like me. He's a traditionalist, and even teams he hates, if they've been down for a while, he likes to see them come back. I'm the same way.
Yeah, I think, and I don't, this isn't meant to speak out of turn to anybody that likes the following three teams, but it felt for a while there that it just, even before the season began, it was going to be Alabama, Clemson, or Ohio State. And, you can do a couple of years of that, but year after year,
Hey, you forgot about Georgia.
Well, and then Georgia came along, but
Yeah.
I'm talking
okay.
a little bit.
You're going back a few years.
A few years before that, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to see then Georgia get good, and then Michigan get good, just new blood for the game makes the game better as a whole. Versus, the complaint about baseball for a number of years. Well, it's the Yankees and everybody else, and so that creates a bit of a stale product. Just unless you're a fan of those teams and you want to just keep winning, I completely understand that. But to me, as a more of an observer of the game as a whole, I like seeing different teams, and it was interesting to see how Michigan got it done. Kind of a very throwback nature to this team that won the title this year. Built on
that's who Harbaugh is.
Yeah, I mean, it was that transported me back to like 1995 NFL, man. Like power run, short, efficient passing, and then just swarming defense. So,
it was
the defense is supposed to be very good.
Yes.
Even though
the rankings
lost,
for next year. Yeah, they're in the
even
top
though we
5.
Lost a lot.
Yeah.
When you have guys that were backups and saw spot duty, but they kept the system the same, even with getting a new coordinator, that makes a difference.
I think the biggest thing was the upgrading talent on the defensive side of the ball is what put Michigan over the top, this past year. Aside from the fact that they could, they could run the ball down anybody's throat for the most part. I think back to that Penn State game where I don't think they threw a pass in the second half of that game. And when you can run the ball for 4 or 5 yards a clip every time, you don't really need to pass it. So it proves you can still kind of win the old school way in the day of lots of passing and the spread and everything. So
you need a good defense to win the title.
Yeah.
Eventually, somebody will
score a point, but yeah, the team with the defense still wins championships in college football.
Yeah, because somebody will
saw that with
eventually
Michigan,
slow
and
down
you saw
a great
that
offense.
with the Georgia teams. Not that the Georgia teams didn't score points, but I mean they were built on Kirby Smart and defense. So
very similar to early Saban years.
Yes, yeah. That's kind of the vibe I got when I watched them both on TV and then that one game in person. Reminded me of Saban's kind of first 3 championship teams at Alabama. Swarming physical defense, the ability to pound the ball down an opponent's throat, which opens up timely passing.
Yeah.
So that was an exciting event we've got coming up at the end of this football season with a 12-team playoff. Unlike anything we have ever seen in our lives.
I think it's great.
I do too.
I think it's exciting. It'll probably be the usual suspects, but at least now you're giving we won't see, hopefully, and you really won't care if it's team 13 or 14 because that'll be a 2 or 3 loss team. I think Doug, you had the team. If we had it this year, it would have been what, Oklahoma with 2 or 3 losses is the
Oklahoma out, and who would be in Liberty?
Maybe Ole Miss. I think might.
No,
have
I
been
think it was Liberty.
Liberty, okay.
Liberty would be that group of 5 team that got the automatic.
Yes,
but wait a minute. What about what conference were they are in? They
would have been the highest ranked group of 5.
Yeah,
at like 22, I think.
So It is a group of 5 team. It is not a 5th conference since the Pac-12 is gone.
Yeah, no, we're in the Power 4 era now.
I don't know what all of the.
So
go ahead.
So it's your Power 4 champions will get the first round bye. So ACC, SEC, Big 10, and Big 12 champions will get the first round bye. Then I believe, and someone can, but you'll take the best at large Power 4 teams within that top 11, and then 12 will be, like Doug said, the highest group of 5 team to give them a bite at the apple, which last year Liberty was unbeaten, but I didn't think they were the best group of 5 team.
But there's a 5th automatic qualifier.
Oh, you're saying now that the Pac-10 has went away and that there's another slot that's
open? I don't think there is. I don't think.
Yes, there is. There is a 5th automatic qualifier and 7 at-larges.
So I think that's that group of 5 team, whoever's the highest. I think, like Doug's just said,
It's a conference champion.
Are there any stipulations though? Like, what if there's not one in the top 25?
No, they get one.
They get one no matter what.
Whoever the committee, I guess, decides. Let me pull it up here.
But I don't believe that means that they are required to be seeded 5th.
No, they can be seeded 12th.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think in Liberty's case, they would have been seeded 12th.
Yeah, Liberty would have been 12, and we saw that in the Fiesta Bowl when Oregon just went to town on them.
Just the whole idea that Marshall could get in the CFP. Now, I'm not saying Marshall is going to get the CFP, even though they're one of the likely suspects of the group of 5. If you look at the top 10, group of 5 teams that's out there, you're looking possibly Appalachian State, Marshall, Cincinnati, even though Cincinnati joined Big 12. So they've snapped a bunch of those higher profile group of 5 teams. But you're looking at Liberty, Coastal Carolina, Marshall, Appalachian State. Those are the kind of teams we could see, I think.
Well, Cincinnati's no good anymore.
Well, yeah. That's because they joined the Big 12.
Okay, so they lost their coach and a lot, and unlike other programs that have strong seasons, the school like Cincinnati's never going to have the depth that will allow them to reload. They'll have to rebuild every once in a while.
Oh, I agree with that. Cincinnati's cyclical. They're in my region, so that's one of the teams I've watched closely my whole life. And Cincinnati has cycles where they come up and dominate in their own little arena of football, which has now changed the Big 12. So they're not going to have, but they have cycles where they do very well in both football and basketball. Then they recede, they take a hit, and then sometimes they come back quicker than you'd think. So, but I'm just using those as an example of the kind of Power 5 schools that are in their world. They're almost. If you look at Appalachian State, if you look at Marshall, those are really the top of the cream of the Power 5 in terms of their history.
So this is an article from February from CBS Sports, and I'll cite Chip Patterson was the author. College Football Playoff Board of Managers unanimously approved a change to the 5+7 model for the expanded 12-team field, which will debut in the 2024 season, awarding automatic bids to the 5 highest-ranked conference champions, with 7 at-large bids filling out the field. It was a change necessitated by the implosion of the Pac-12 as a championship-producing conference, as 10 of those members now reside in the Big 10, Big 12, and ACC. So going through this process, a few points of clarification. The 4 highest-ranked conference champions will get the top 4 seeds in order in the bracket and receive a first-round bye. Those teams may be ranked behind other at-large teams in the final selection committee rankings, but if a team is, for example, the 3rd highest-ranked conference champion, it will automatically jump to number 3 in the bracket. After that, the 5th highest-ranked conference champion is not guaranteed anything other than a spot in the field. If the 5th highest-ranked conference champion is ranked behind the 7 at-large selections, it will be the number 12 seed. Higher seeds in the first round host playoff games, either at their home stadium or another location of their designation. After the first round, the 6 games that make up the quarterfinals and semifinals will be hosted by the traditional New Year's 6 bowl games.
So if a team like Iowa, wait a minute though. There's no more. The no more division starts now, right?
You talking about the Big Ten? No more.
And the SEC.
And the SEC. I don't think there's divisions now in any of the Power Four conferences.
They got like pods they play though. That you have some teams you play.
I mean, it's a scheduling pods, but they won't show up with standings or anything.
Right. There'll be no East or West or anything of that nature. It'll just be.
I mean, it's literally going to be. They're going to say the two best teams, and they have a way of determining that.
Yeah.
Well,
now,
it'll be the two teams with the best record, and if one or more teams are tied for any of those slots, they'll use tie-breaking formulas.
Right.
But from year to year, because of the size of the conferences and the scheduling, it could potentially be unfair.
Sure.
That's what I was thinking. You were saying
but you don't care about the unfairness because the check you're getting at the end of the year by being part of these groups will, for the athletic departments, will trump whatever lack of fairness there is in the scheduling.
And if you're good enough, you're going to get in the top 12 anyway, and you might be happy you got a week of rest.
Right. So the way too early predictions here for next fall, for the top four, they have Georgia at 1 as the SEC champion, Ohio State at 2 is the Big Ten, 3 is Clemson, the ACC champion, and then 4 is Utah, the Big 12 champion.
Damn.
Then you're at large. Liberty would play at Oregon in the 12-5. Ole Miss.
Isn't their quarterback transfer?
Who?
Liberty.
I'm going to have to phone a friend on that. I'm not too up to date on Liberty right now.
I saw something about that, but I didn't pay much attention. I don't know where he. But
the 11-6 would be Ole Miss at Texas. The 10-7 would be Notre Dame at Michigan, and the 9-8 would be Penn State at Alabama. So, if that's what we get, that would be, to me, high drama and exciting television.
Yeah, that'd be good stuff. I don't know anybody who wouldn't be in on that.
But I mean, this is way too early, so we don't know. I mean, I think we still have another round of transfer.
Oh wow! So if we beat Notre Dame, then we're going to Ohio State again.
Well, you would play Ohio State in one of the New Year's 6 games.
If we beat Notre Dame as a 7 seed, we would then. Oh, that's right. It would not be a campus site.
Right, because Ohio State has the bye the first week. Then the next week you start New Year's 6 games in the quarterfinals, semifinals, and then let me see where the national championship game is played.
Are we sure the quarters aren't on campus sites? I thought they were
No, quarters and semis are New Year's 6. Let me get the bracket breakdown. Let's see. So the schedule. Let's see here. Okay. So the schedule after that first round, which is on campus, so Michigan would be at Notre Dame. If they won, they'd play Ohio State, but it's in the quarterfinals. So the quarterfinals are your traditional New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. So that would be New Year's Eve is the Fiesta Bowl that night. And New Year's Day, you'd have the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. You'd have the Rose Bowl. And then you'd have the Sugar Bowl. And the winners would advance to the semifinals. That's the Final Four. And that would be the following week, Thursday, January 9th, Friday, January 10th. The Orange Bowl is on Thursday, the 9th of January. And the Cotton Bowl is on Friday, the 10th. And then the national championship game follows 10 days later on Monday, January 20th. In Atlanta at the Falcon Stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
The Peach.
No. I'll let my wife know tomorrow that we're getting takeout on New Year's Eve.
What's that? The Peach.
I have to let my wife know tomorrow we're getting takeout on New Year's Eve.
No, the Peach, Bob, to your point, will play their game on January 1st, same stadium, but then 20 days later, it just becomes the national championship game site in the same stadium.
I got you.
So
yeah.
I think that's very exciting, and they were smart to keep it on a Monday where the NFL won't be playing, because that if they had backed up the schedule. Remember, the wild card round now in the NFL plays on Monday night.
That's right. So, but it will be a different Monday, I guess.
It'll be a different Monday without conflict from the NFL.
It'll be Saturday. It'll be the weekend games.
I believe that's the divisional round for the NFL. Yeah.
I love the Saturday games. When the NFL comes into the playoffs and does Saturdays and there's not college football left, perfect,
Oh, the NFL is still doing. In fact, the NFL is also, I think, going to play a Christmas Day game this year on a weird day. I think it's a Wednesday game. They're
doing it.
They're taking Christmas Day away from the NBA because they noticed the ratings were so good these last 2 years. Albeit, it definitely throws a wrench in for. And we haven't seen the NFL schedule come out yet. It doesn't come out until I think the second week of May. But for those two teams that are going to have to play on that Christmas Day, which let me check the calendar here. Christmas Day, I believe, is a Wednesday this year.
I don't think they'll ever do it because it would eliminate a bowl game. But man, if they could have the college football semifinals as a doubleheader in the same stadium, that wowould be so cool.
Yeah,
I think the problem is getting the field changed for the NFL from the college game. I think that's it, because it takes, like, for example, the Jets and the Giants, and the Chargers and the Rams playing the same stadium. To change the field, I think, is a 24-hour turnaround.
Now, they used New York at the old Polo Grounds. They would have a college football game, a big-time matchup, right, with like Notre Dame. I was watching History Channel of World War II colorized, and they had a guy from Notre Dame that was filming that game, and then the game after it was the Giants and I forget who else, the Giants and the Lions, maybe, and that was in 1941, 41. So it's been done before, and long time.
That's back before. I think the goalposts were still at the goal line.
Yes.
Oh wow.
That's back when the goalposts were still at the goal line.
They had LSU goalposts back then.
Yeah, I mean that's.
We only know about this because they filmed that back in the day. They filmed that on a potato, and you can actually see that.
I mean, you're going back when you're talking about the Polo Grounds, man. That's.
Oh yeah. Well, that's early color film, and it was a handheld device, and it was the World War II in color is a great series, and that's in the episode leading where it's talking about the lead up to the War of Japan, and it's some great footage, and people were smart to keep stuff like that, Now,
I mean, the Polo Grounds last held an actual contest. I think the Mets played there in 1961 or 62.
Yeah.
Before they moved over to Shea Stadium in Queens, and then that territory was too valuable because remember the Polo Grounds was on Manhattan, just across the river from Yankee Stadium.
Was the really
very
big?
Close to the GW Bridge.
There was a really big game one time between Fordham. Was it Fordham and Notre Dame?
No, I think it was Fordham and Pitt.
That's one too.
Fordham
was in several big games.
I don't think Fordham ever played Notre Dame. I was going through Notre Dame's complete historical, records, and I wanted to know if they had ever played. And I don't think they ever did, which is kind of surprising to me. But yes, Fordham played some big games there at the Polo Ground, along with old Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, because Fordham's in the Bronx. And then, of course, those great Army teams would play down at either Yankee Stadium or the Polo Grounds. The Polo Grounds are probably better suited for football than baseball, really.
I think it was Notre Dame and Army, the game that they were filming.
It definitely could have been, for sure. At the time, whoever made the better deal to the colleges. So remember, the Polo Grounds was owned and operated by the New York Giants, who are now the San Francisco Giants, and obviously old Yankee Stadium, which is gone now. There's new Yankee Stadium, is owned and operated by the Yankees. But yeah, a lot of great games were played in those two facilities. In the 30s and 40s.
Hell yeah.
Now just the new Yankee Stadium hosts the the Pinstripe Bowl, which to me is always
nobody watches.
Well, those of us that are hardcore, we watch it, but yeah, it's usually not the greatest game in the world during bowl season.
And you get sent to a cold climate. See, one of the advantages of the bowl games back in the day is these teams would be like, hell, we're going to California, And I find that intriguing for the college football playoff. The possibility we could have snow and mud football, right? Yep. And that's one of the reasons I brought up that game, because it was a muddy game. That's one of the things I remember. And I'd love to see some fucking brutally cold like Cincinnati Bengals in January, known as Riverfront Stadium, kind of fucking cold.
You'll get the cold, below with the wind chill, and the Chargers didn't have a chance.
Oh yeah,
Air Coryell was grounded that day.
Oh yeah, it was awful. And I can see that in college football, and I know Doug, you'd probably like to see it too.
Absolutely.
I remember Dan Fouts goes, it was like trying to throw a shoebox that day. He goes, if you ever try to throw a shoebox, it doesn't go very far.
And they were
he was used to San Diego weather, so.
And the week before, they had played down in 84-degree Miami in the Epic in Miami against the Dolphins. It's 84 and humid. And the next week, you get to go to Riverfront and play in the freezer bowl, where with the wind chill, it was minus 59 degrees. Yeah, and you're from San Diego, where the coldest it gets is maybe 65. Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely a factor, ain't it?
But you won't get the mud, Bob, because most of the upper Midwest, at least for the colleges, and Ed, correct me, but Michigan, you guys have the artificial turf, correct?
The field turf, the pellets in it. I love that stuff.
Well, it's not the old AstroTurf, but yes.
Right, but it's the new, the rubber pellet kind of thing. Notre Dame's got that. Ohio State's got that. I think the only one that's still hanging tough with the grass, Penn State, I think, is still natural. Maybe Michigan State is grass too, but most have all gone to the rubber pellet kind of a field.
Oh yeah,
they all used to have the AstroTurf.
Well, Notre Dame never had the AstroTurf. It was natural grass.
That's true.
Forever until Brian Kelly wanted the field turf. Which is fine, though, because, I think the Bears at Soldier still have just grass. And by, middle December, it's mud because it's cold and the grass isn't growing. They might throw a roll of sod down, but, it's not going to grow when it's 20 degrees and sleeting and snow.
I love that stuff, though. I really do. Especially the Bears case. That's that for them, it's just, damn, we got to go to Chicago. It's going to be miserable. And it's really most miserable when it's not quite freezing, right? When it's like 35 degrees and wet. That's the most miserable thing in the fucking world.
Well, let's take a break, guys. And then when we come back, we'll wrap up college basketball for the year and start previewing some college baseball.
Bathroom.
Okay.
All right. We'll be back.
You are now watching or listening to Smacking Off the Podcast. If you love it, tell your friends about it. If you hate it, share it with your enemies.
It was just a small gift from Mummy and Daddy. One, however, that would spark a bit of an obsession. It started out innocent enough, as these things always do, but quickly lit the fuse to something bigger. Mum and Dad encouraged other activities, but alas, had to sell things almost as fast as they bought them. Friends and family thought it was cute. It's just a bit of fun, they said. It's just a phase, they said. Well, it's all fun and games until your child is 34, still lives at home, and absolutely nothing has changed. These things should really come with a warning label. Buy, sell, eBay.
We're back.
We are, and Bob, we need to hear about Kentucky and Kentucky's new coach, which I see that some people are not high on the hire and some people are very excited. So tell us about it.
Well, I'm excited. I think Mark Pope is he's relatively young, and he played in school, and he was
absolutely. He understands Kentucky basketball for sure.
Yep, and I think he's going to bring some energy to the program. I think he's going to at least run different sets and be prepared for games. Now there's guys that have transferred or entered the transfer portal or entered the NBA. Well, good luck to them guys. I think it's great. As far as Calipari going to Arkansas, he might have a couple years of success, and them guys are high and they got something to talk about. Thank God. But he's gone. It's a new era for Kentucky basketball. He'll bring his own guys in. He'll have a certain level of success, and we'll see what happens. But I think he's going to do all right.
Now, Bob, a question for you.
What's that?
And this is not meant to be rude, but it'll sound that way. And I like the Pope hire. I agree with everything you've said because he knows Lexington. He knows the program. I think it's actually a great hire. But just a question. Were you a little shocked that there were so many big-name coaches that kind of turned down the job?
No, because the fact that the spotlight that had been under, that it wouldn't have been like a retirement hire, is a total commitment. And I also think that Billy Donovan, his success at the end of the season kept him from being able to look at the job because I think he was actually interested. But in the case of Jay Wright and others of his ilk and Nate Oates, so Nate Oates proved that he could have his cake and eat it too. He can be in a smaller fiefdom and be the biggest fish during his part of the year, but the attention shifts to football the rest of the year and not onto him. So therefore he can depressurize. But at Kentucky, he would never be able to depressurize. Every move, every recruit, right? Every future recruit all over the country, all of it's scrutinized, whether or not you're talking to them, where you're at on that pecking order. Yeah, all that scrutinized, and somebody like Nate Oates for 6 months of the year, he's not being scrutinized.
Well, I don't think Jay Wright's
that's
coming
very
back
true
anywhere.
I think that's very true, and Doug can speak more to it, being our Alabama fan. But both Alabama football and basketball made the Final Four. Both lost their first game in the Final Four, but I think the loss in one was much more upsetting than the loss in the other, right, Doug?
For me, yes. I'm not sure for everybody, but
so like losing.
I was expecting the loss to UConn.
Right, but in the Rose Bowl, you guys were 5 minutes away from winning that. I think that one certainly hurt more than obviously you run into UConn, who's the Alabama of college basketball right now.
Especially now that we know that Saban probably already knew he was quitting, and just that opportunity that he could have got into the national championship game. And
I think they probably beat. It was Washington, but had Texas won, I think they would have beat Texas in the rematch.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, I think the Michigan-Alabama game, actually, I know it was the semifinal, but that to me was more, and I was there, but so not to be a biased source.
Kind of like 2014 all over again.
Yeah, I think that was the national championship game. And then whoever survived.
The same way that Ohio State and Alabama was.
Correct. Yeah, whoever got through that and got to Oregon that next week was gonna win that game. But the one that surprised me, Bob, that turned it down was Scott Drew from Baylor. I really thought once Donovan and Jay Wright and even though I don't think Kentucky approached him, I think Rick Pitino also turned it down. Not that he was going to get it, but I think once those, I was really surprised Scott Drew turned that down and decided to stay at Baylor.
It's a very good low-profile program where he doesn't have to deal with the same type of microscope. He's won a national championship. He's a hero there forever.
Yep,
Yeah.
and he can do it probably easier at Baylor than he could at Kentucky. I mean, with less pressure. Sorry,
less pressure for sure. Yeah. I mean, but he would have definitely got a pay increase for sure.
And plus, there's traditional things that Calipari didn't do, and games that he should be playing every year that were not, such as Indiana, such as Notre Dame. Those are just games you got to play. That's got to be on our schedule. We play Navy. Those are, I mean, you've got to pick your cupcakes better. You got to play cupcakes that can actually beat you, even though that did happen under Calipari. Ones that you would never have guessed. I mean, he had the ultimate failures in the history of our program. He lost to Robert Morris at Robert Morris. He lost to 15 seeds and 14 seeds in the NCAA tournament. I mean, you've got to play those teams. We used to play Buffalo and Gonzaga and stuff when they were coming up in the world.
We got to get that Indiana game back on the schedule, Bob.
Right, you goddamn right. We got to get the Indiana game back on the schedule. We got to get Notre Dame back on the schedule. If you're Kentucky, you can't hide from anybody. And
Notre Dame's terrible now.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Notre Dame's building. I will say this: I follow them from afar, basketball wise, because Notre Dame. One thing that bothers me is now that they're ACC for basketball and all their others, minus they're in the Big Ten for ice hockey, but their non-conference schedules have been pretty light. They haven't played a lot of SEC, Big Ten, or Big East opponents.
Well, here's the to play,
and they need if Shrewsbury, their new head coach, who they got from Penn State, it was his first year, so give him time to rebuild. What was left over from Mike Bray, because Mike Bray's last 2 or 3 years were not great, but they got into the tournament, and I think they beat Rutgers. Notre Dame's in a rebuild right now, but they need to get back to doing what Notre Dame basketball has always done in the non-conference, which is
play the top
schedule aggressively, schedule good opponents, get Kentucky back on a schedule, get Michigan back on the schedule. If you lose, you lose, but at least you're playing the best.
So, Sean, how long have you been a Creighton basketball fan?
Oh, just forever. I mean, but Creighton doesn't have football,
True.
So
true. What's the best that Notre Dame has done in basketball in your lifetime? In men's basketball.
I would say women's basketball. They've won a couple national championships. The Creighton women's teams have gotten, I think, as far as maybe the Elite Eight in my lifetime. Notre Dame men's basketball, I think the furthest I've seen them go, I was real young. Maybe they went to the Elite Eight when Digger Phelps was still the coach, and they had LaFonso Ellis. Maybe they might have went to the Elite Eight.
Out of 4 with Digger Phelps and earlier.
Well, that was before my time. Yeah, no, that was the. Oh, what was his name? You'd know him, from the '77 team. Went on to the NBA.
Or Artis Gilmore.
That might have been him, and maybe.
I remember LaFonso Ellis well. He was
LaFonso Ellis. Gilmore went to Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's not who I'm thinking of.
But I do. Talking Shoemaker.
Let me pull it up here. But no, I remember the LaFonso Ellis teams.
Lambier.
That was definitely before my time. The Lambier and John Paxson teams. But yeah, either Elite Eight or Sweet 16, Doug.
So Sean, what happens? Where do you stand if Notre Dame goes on a basketball tear and Creighton's having a great year at the same time?
Oh,
if they play each other,
sure, that's a good place to start.
I'll root for Creighton.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
So here's why that
I mean, most of the Jesuit colleges and universities in the country do not have football. If they do have football, they're down in the FCS. So, like, Creighton hasn't had football since before World War II, I think. Similar, like Marquette, similar. They don't have football. Like Fordham, I think, went down to a lower level for football. The only one that's still in major college football is Boston College.
Oh, yeah.
So it's that's the two Catholic schools that play big-time college football are Notre Dame and Boston College. And that one's easy. I'll root for Notre Dame over Boston College any day.
So here's why they played the Notre Dame Kentucky game, but they also used to play Michigan State Kentucky, is because for us, we've got huge fan bases around the areas that are industrialized in the Midwest, because all of our people that moved there in the 50s and 60s to work. So South Bend is full of transplanted hillbillies, right? Lansing, I'm just saying, Detroit, everywhere they make cars, Lima, Cleveland, all those places are full of transplanted hillbillies.
Well, it's really Mishawaka.
They're not the blue ones, are they?
Oh yeah.
They got some blue ones.
Yeah, well, they probably Melungeons. Everybody, being poor has no racial boundaries here in Kentucky. Everybody's poor, so if we were all headed north, up US 23 to all those northern industrial towns to make money. So we've got little patches of fan bases all over the upper Midwest.
So the team that Bob was thinking of was the 78 Irish who went to the Final Four.
Yes.
77, 78.
I think they lost to Marquette or Kentucky. Kelly Trapuka. That's who we're talking about.
So let me see here. Let's see.
I think the doctor's right.
Yeah. So Kelly
Notre Dame won the Midwest region, beating DePaul to get to the Final Four, and then lost to Duke.
Who lost
in the Final Four. Kentucky beat Arkansas, and it was Kentucky-Duke for the national championship game, and Kentucky beat Duke for the national championship.
So the player at Notre Dame, that was Kelly Trapuka. I remember him well now. And they touted the matchup big time. In them days, the national championship was on NBC. And Al McGuire might have even commentated that particular Final Four. He
did. It was Dick Enberg, Billy Packer, and Al McGuire. This was in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
So the let's see here. Let me see here.
Paul Macy and Kelly Trapuka. That was the last matchup of Caucasians that I saw because Notre Dame and Kentucky played early that year. It was a huge game, and we was hoping that they would win and play in the championship against Kentucky, because we knew that we had the best team in the country in '78. We had the best point guard, we had the best shooting guard, we had the big man. I mean, you had it was the best all around team that Kentucky had. We're talking Rick Roby, Kyle Macy, Jack Givens. I mean, those guys were incredible. That was a great team. They were expected to win the championship. They had big pressure. That's why they made that big ESPN documentary about that team.
Didn't Jack Givens have 41 in the championship game?
Oh, you were right about Kelly Trapuka, but also Bill Lambier was on that team for Notre Dame. But the guy I was thinking of that I couldn't remember, and Ed was right. It wasn't Artis Gilmore. It was Orlando Woolridge.
Woolridge, what a player!
Yeah, that's who I can always remember him dunking for the Irish in those when they do like a throwback to great Notre Dame teams, dunking in the old building there on campus. So yeah, Orlando, they had a great front court with Lambier, Trapuka. They had no backcourt though. They had no guards on that team really. So it's not surprising they lost in the Final Four, because we talk about the tournament all the time. Great guard play is imperative.
Yes, and they played throughout the whole tournament, and it's really the reason that I thought that UConn would beat Purdue, because even though Purdue had great and their guards, he had been fucking up the last few games of the tournament they were in. He was outplayed. in the last several games, and UConn's guards were definitely another level.
But I stand remiss to Doug's original question, and I'm kind of shocked I forgot about these, but I guess it's because of the way they went out. But Mike Bray led the Irish basketball team to the Elite Eight twice in his tenure at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But when they got to the Elite Eight, they were clearly outmatched, outmuscled, in 15 and 16. That was the year that they, I think one of their first years, they won the ACC conference tournament during Bray's tenure, but then they'd run into a buzzsaw in usually it was the Sweet 16, but for 2 years it was the Elite Eight. But they could never get to the Final Four with Mike Bray. And then Bray kind of, ran out of steam towards the end of his time there. He'd been there a long time, and they kind of fell to the bottom of the ACC. And now, Shrewsbury is picking up the pieces. And, the record didn't say they were great this year, but I think Shrewsbury's got Notre Dame men's basketball on the right track back to being a relevant program. The problem is you're in the ACC and you're a football team. So can it be done? Sure, but will it be done on a regular basis?
They need to give him a reasonable amount of time because the expectations are not through the roof at Notre Dame for basketball.
Right. Yeah. No. This is his first year, and to me, he's got at least 5 years before you'd think about not having him as the coach. It's very similar to, I think we talked about how long Brad Brownell has been at Clemson, and Clemson had a great year this year, but it's been a long time since Clemson had a great year in basketball. I think they talked about this is the farthest they've been in the NCAA tournament since 1980 or 81.
Yeah, they just keep hanging on. I mean, they've had competitive teams. They've had great local talent step in here and there that made them better one year than the next, but they never had consistent success.
I think it's few and far between the schools and that are going to be great in both. We're talking about schools like Texas and Alabama and Oklahoma and Florida and Michigan and Ohio State are really the teams that you think about that can be great in both football and basketball. I mean, no disrespect to what Kentucky's been doing in football recently, Bob. I think they've been doing above and beyond what you were used to before Stoops got there. But I don't think you would bat an eye if Kentucky football goes 8-4, but Kentucky basketball wins the national championship.
Oh yeah, it'd be what it is. But as you can tell, so we've been teased a few times in the last 10 years where Kentucky went into the fifth week of the season with a number 5 ranking, right? And when those games has happened, and especially when they went into top 5 or top 10 ranking against Georgia, which basically ends their season lately, but.
And I've told you that most years. I said, wait until they play Georgia before we make a definitive statement on.
Kentucky. You're right, but the hype gets out of hand, right? Point of it though. So when Kentucky gets close in football during the season, the hype is out of hand, and in some of those years, they would have been close to being in the 12-team playoff, which had been just like Alabama went to the Final Four. If Kentucky makes the 12-team playoff ever, right, there'll be couches burnt in the streets, right, and cars flipped and shit like that, right?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but I think Stoops has got a couple of 11-win seasons, right?
Yes, he is at 10 wins, 10 wins, I believe. I think there's 11.
And he's the first coach to do that since Bear Bryant was there to do that, right?
No, since
Frank Kersey.
Frank Kersey, okay.
Yeah, because they would have, I believe it was 77 or 78, but it was they were vacated for some reason. It was point shaving.
They went 10-1 back in the day when they only played 11
the game against
games.
Georgia this past year was hyped up, but they got smoked.
Right.
And then they got smoked by Alabama, I think, the next week.
Yeah, so that basically just their season fell out. And plus, Leary wasn't any good, guys. And Kentucky's line was recovering from being horrible the year before, which was uncharacteristic for us. And what happened was our offensive line coach died, right?
Yeah, I saw that. That was really sad.
He was well respected. John
He was
Sharp.
loved. Yeah, he was loved.
He was beloved, and he was able to get a lot out of guys, and he was just great at developing players. And the guys that they got weren't up to that standard. I wonder who's pulling my driveway. Guys, when you live in Appalachia in the middle of nowhere,
someone pulls in your driveway.
Hey, make sure you don't hear a megaphone.
Right,
Yeah.
you raise an eyebrow.
Yeah, real interesting. Hello, what can I do for you? Might have. Who's it for? What's the name?
It's Uber Eats. You ordered the large lasagna, right?
Oh, we got the full ribeye there. Half of it slide.
So, Sean, get us up to speed on college baseball.
Christy,
So, college baseball. I mean,
that's next door to us. Standing on the porch over there.
Hey, we were doing your team sucks donkey balls. Me and Tim one day. Yeah, he went through a drive-through. It was very similar.
I think I remember that. Yes, I remember. Yeah, he put an order in for like a double cheeseburger and some fries. Yeah, I remember that.
He did. He said, "Hey, don't worry about it. Keep talking, Doug."
It's like lately on the Dan Patrick show, like these people will be on hold forever, and then Dan will finally, take the call, and like, oh yeah, what can I help you with? Like, no, you called me. You called me. So college baseball, we're about halfway through, maybe a little more than halfway through the regular season.
The season's been going on since February, right?
It's a very long season. Yes, it starts in February. The usual suspects. Let's breeze through. And I will say it's the usual suspects being it's heavily loaded with ACC and SEC schools. And that makes sense because in February, the weather is already starting to get good in those locations, whereas, Ed is still wearing his sweatshirt in April where he's at. So it's
in the evening, yeah. But the SEC is the best conference in college baseball.
It's only going to get better next year with the additions of Texas and Oklahoma. Let me tell you,
powerhouses too.
Yeah, but the SEC, the Florida teams and the Pac-12 teams have taken somewhat of a back seat over the past several years.
It's because they're going to other schools in the conference, though.
So we'll use since this is one thing crazy, but you think we have a lot of different rankings for college football, gentlemen? There are a ton of different rankings for college baseball. So we have USA Today baseball coaches poll. We have the AP, obviously. We have the NCAA D1 baseball top 25, and we have Baseball America's top 25.
Which one helps? Which one seeds the playoff?
The NCAA one will do that. So we'll use that one. Let's use that one.
Yeah.
Well, the playoff, it's a literal playoff because you have regionals and then super regionals to get to the World Series.
And you have to, but really the teams that get in, you got to win your conference, and then if you're from the power ones, you might get an at-large.
Right.
So right now, top 25 from the NCAA site. Texas A&M is at 1. Arkansas is at 2. Kentucky is at 3.
Jeez.
Tennessee is at 4.
Jeez.
Oregon State is at 5, and Oregon State has a really good team, and they've had some really good teams in the past.
Where's Vanderbilt?
Tell me, is this Pac baseball still, or is
still Pac? Yeah, this is the end of the Pac-12. Yes. Okay. 6 is Clemson. 7 is Duke. 8 is Florida State. 9 is East Carolina. 10 is Virginia. 11 is North Carolina. 12 is Wake Forest. 13 is Vanderbilt. 14 is Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns.
Ow!
15, Oklahoma State. 16, Oregon. 17, UC Irvine. 18 is Alabama. 19, Coastal Carolina. 20 is South Carolina. 21, Arizona. 22 is West Virginia. 23, Virginia Tech. 24 is, surprisingly, Georgia, and 25 is Dallas Baptist.
Damn.
I'm a little shocked that Alabama was. I didn't look at any of the top 25s. I'm a little shocked that they're in because
Alabama's got a very good baseball team.
They have a losing conference record, and they've got 15 overall losses.
Shows them they're 24-12 overall. So unless they lost some games this
25
week,
and 15.
So this is from last Monday.
Okay, they're 25 and 15 now, I believe, and 7 and 11 in the conference.
So others receiving votes: Central Florida, Mississippi State, Nebraska, and Florida. So, college baseball is Southern heavy, regardless of conference. Whether you're in the ACC, the SEC, the Sun Belt, what's the other small conference like that? Furman and Wofford is in. I'm
Southern.
I think the Southern, the Southern Conference. Yeah, I mean, and then you have a couple outliers in the 2 Oregon schools. UC Irvine is known for its baseball program. I'm surprised that Arizona's in there. That one kind of shocks me. But yeah, it's going to be another, kind of a Southern affair when we get to the NCAA playoffs that start, I think, the first weekend of June.
Do I hear Tap Brains in the background singing?
Damn, can you hear that?
Yeah, I gotta hear.
I mean, I could hear it, and I didn't really think anybody else could hear it.
I heard a little bit of it. It's good though.
Go.
But the teams that aren't ranked that will get into the NCAA tournament for baseball, you still have to account for just like basketball, the automatic conference bids. And for example, Creighton is in the Big East. They're battling. They're at the top. They had a good series this weekend against Villanova. UConn is right there at the top of the Big East, and there's a number of other conferences that will produce a conference champion that will, be in the tournament. So, and then it'll get seeded, and 2 teams will make it out of each regional to go to the super regionals.
So are we ready to talk college baseball, or do we need to talk some other stuff for a few weeks?
I think we can talk some other stuff for a few weeks. I mean, the conference tournaments don't start until the middle to end of May, and we'll have a clearer picture by then.
How about collegiate bowling, y'all?
Oh,
I heard Vanderbilt's quite good at bowling.
They probably are.
Well, we got the PGA coming up.
Let's talk to PGA then, because I won't be able to say much, but I can definitely listen.
Well, as you know, I mean, Ed and I can't speak for Bob. Are you a big golf fan or no?
Nah, but I've lived vicariously like through your recent trip to the Masters. So.
I did. It was a lifetime dream to go to Augusta National to see the Masters. It's one of the 4 men's majors. It's not the oldest. In fact, it's the youngest, but it's the only of the 4 that is played at the same course every year, usually the first weekend of April, sometimes the second, depending on how the calendar shakes out. And it is – go ahead, Doug.
No, go ahead.
And
I'll remember.
It is, Augusta National for golf is similar to, you talk about the cathedrals of other great sports, whether it's for baseball, Fenway Park, Wrigley Field, football, Lambeau Field or Arrowhead or the Big House for Michigan or Bryant-Denny for Alabama. It's one of those kind of bucket list, places that you if you love golf, which I certainly do, just getting on the grounds there. And it's the second toughest sport in the United States to get a ticket to, right behind the Super Bowl annually. It's the very best. It's of the 4 majors, it's the one I love the most. And it's an experience that I think anybody that loves golf should get to just once in their life.
Well, before we go, Sean, bring us up to speed on your partying buddy that you met at Augusta.
So I remembered from either a Golf Digest article or a Golf Weekly or whatever article that John Daly is always at the Hooters in Augusta during Masters Week, and I checked it out again while I was down there, and sure enough, he was there. And growing up as a kid in the '90s, I loved the way John Daly played golf. I loved his story. And his story of he was the 8th or ninth alternate for the 1991 PGA Championship. That's one of the other 4 majors. He got a call that a bunch of people had, decided to withdraw from the 91 PGA Championship, which is a Crooked Stick just outside of Indianapolis. And he drove through the night, showed up, with his big flowing blonde mullet. This is 91. And just he hit the ball farther than anybody off the tee. This is back when they were using literally persimmon wood drivers. And he was hitting the ball 300 yards with a persimmon wood driver. And, he's playing with house money. And he won the PGA Championship in 91. And nobody saw this guy coming. Nobody. And, then fast forward a couple years later, the 1995 Open Championship, and that was at the home of golf, St. Andrews, which is the oldest golf course in the world. And he won that major championship, the Claret Jug. And his diet that week was incredible. I think he was eating jumbo bags of peanut M&Ms and drinking 12 or 15 Diet Cokes along with, a few cigarettes. And he triumphed in the playoff, if memory serves. And I just loved his go for it. Like, he always went for it. He never laid up. He was going for it. And, he's a rags to riches great American story. He played his college golf at Arkansas, and just a down-to-earth guy. So I ended up going over to the restaurant to meet him, and just a very thankful, humble gentleman that, is blessed. And he's like you saw on the 30 for 30. If you watch the 30 for 30 with him, he'll chit chat with you. He's sign autographs, take pictures. He's just a great, friendly individual who just happened to have.
Did you have a pimento and cheese sandwich while you were at the tournament?
I did. I had 3 of them because the one thing about the Masters, once you get through the gates, is their food and beverage prices are lined with a anti-inflationary belt, because a pimento and cheese sandwich is $1.50.
Damn it.
So I had 3 of those. I had an egg salad sandwich, also $1.50. I think I had a barbecue pulled pork, which was, I think, maybe $3. It was delicious. And I think the beers were $4. So yeah, the prices for food and beverage at the Masters are very reasonably priced. And the course is always it's meticulously maintained. Not a weed to be found, not a blade of grass out of place. And the winner is the world number 1, the guy that's the hottest player in the world, Scotty Scheffler. He dominated the field in a weekend where the weather was not perfect. Particularly Friday, the winds were gusting 20, 25, maybe even 30 miles per hour. And you saw a lot of big names, particularly some previous Masters champions, go home early. And Scotty was, rock solid, and he got it done. And
did he win the Heritage today?
He's going to probably win it tomorrow. It got suspended on account of darkness today.
Okay.
But he's got a 5-stroke lead going into tomorrow.
I was surprised he was there this week, given his wife's condition.
Well, he supposedly, him and his wife checked with the doctor. It doesn't look like The child's going to be born for another couple weeks, so he got clearance to be there. And now, if something changes, he's got his phone, so he'll immediately hit a private jet if something changes to get back to Dallas. But no, it looks like closer towards the end of the month or maybe the beginning of May is when the child is due. But if he doesn't get a phone call tonight or tomorrow morning, he's got 3 holes. All he has to do is make par on them, and he'll win another one. And that'll be 4 of his last 5 tournaments he'll have won.
Now, one of the things I do love about golf is that when a guy is number 1 and is clearly playing, he's literally the best player in the world. It's undisputable.
Oh, that's what Scotty Scheffler is right now. And a little note on the women's game. They've got their own Scotty Scheffler in the form of Nelly Korda, who tied an LPGA record today, which is she's won her last 5 consecutive starts. That's only happened 2 other times in LPGA history. That happened with Nancy Lopez in 78 and then Annika Sorenstam in 04 into 05, which is winning 5 tournaments in a row. And what makes Nelly's even more special today was the conclusion of their first major championship in women's golf. So she's kind of on a similar run to Scotty. And it's incredible that right now we have the number 1 women's golfer in the world is from the U.S. and the number 1 men's golfer in the world is from the U.S. and they're on just incredible hot streaks. I barring a absolute breakdown. Scotty will win tomorrow morning. I mean, he's got a 5-stroke lead with 3 holes to play. No one's. He just needs to make par, and he'll get the trophy.
He doesn't screw up a lot, so when he starts really making birdies,
I mean, he just doesn't make mistakes
to that score.
And the reason they're finishing tomorrow is there was a 2-hour delay for rain. Rain came through this late in the afternoon. They came back out around 6:15 to get a few more holes in. But it's funny. There was a hole after Scotty came back out. He hits the second shot and it goes in the water. And there is this where Scotty collapses. So he has to take a drop. Takes the drop, hits a perfect iron into the green, saves his par with a putt, and then they called it for darkness. So he's unflappable. He's completely unflappable.
Yep.
And for him, I think he says he doesn't do much, if anything at all, regarding social media or the news. Like, he doesn't pay attention to any of it. So his demeanor, watching him for the last 4 years, he has played the same demeanor-wise when he wasn't winning tournaments versus now when he is winning tournaments. His demeanor he's just very calm, very methodical, just goes through his process. And really the only kind of, note that was keeping him from really dominance earlier this year was his putting. And, he changed his putter from a blade to a mallet, and that seemed to solve those woes because his driver and his irons were already best in the world. So now you had a great putter to the great driving and irons. I mean, it'll certainly be interesting to see how Scotty does after this is the birth of his first child. That'll change things up, as far as his calendar and his day-to-day activities. But right now, he's the best in the world, and it's not particularly close.
It's not.
But I had a great time at the Masters. We're excited. And, Bob, you should be excited for the PGA because it's coming to your not quite your neck of the woods, but, I mean, it's in Kentucky.
Oh, yeah. Well, they've had it in Louisville a few times. At once in Lexington at the Griffin Gate. So I'd like to see it.
Are we looking at Sunday next week, us?
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. And then the other thing that's coming that Bob's got to be excited for, as of yesterday, I know today's Sunday, but as of yesterday, 14 days and a wake up until they're going to run for those roses in Louisville, Bob.
Yeah, we're going to party down. Yeah. That's the 5th time we ain't hot, too. So after today.
that's definitely a bucket list item that I would like to get to at some point. Is Louisville for the Derby. So
we got to get it done. We got to get her done.
All right,
now,
guys.
I would join you.
Group trip.
I would, trip to that. But I would do to meet Bob a little, like say halfway, a little closer to his place. I would go up to Lexington to Keeneland to check out. They usually have a race there at Keeneland a couple times a year. So I'd be.
They have the spring fall meeting. It's both fabulous. And then the week before the Derby, you have the Oaks, and that's the main qualifier for the Derby.
Right. Yeah. So I'd definitely be, either one would be great. But we're in that time of year, we don't have college basketball. We don't have college football. And right now, we really can't put a bow quite yet on college basketball because if you guys have been following it, the transfer portal is still open and active.
It's singing right now. It's really.
And I don't think it closes until the 1st of May.
All right, so that's more discussion material, right?
Yes,
right, because guys are still. There have been a couple of made decisions to, that have gone to the portal. They've left their school and they've gone to a new school, but there's still probably 80% that have gone to the portal. They're going to leave their school, but they're not. They're taking visits right now to where their next school is going to be.
We just got the big guy from Yale.
I was going to say, Michigan, for you, Ed, you got the young man from Yale. That's exciting. And I think you got another guy, too.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we'll have a pretty decent roster next year.
And Doug, you have to be very excited. You know why?
What's that?
You guys, I think, poached the guard from Auburn. He's going to Tuscaloosa next year. So
yeah, I just seen that.
You can send Gabe Griffin a funny note. Look who we got.
Well, let's do it again next Sunday, guys.
But yeah, we got more to talk about it.
Yep. All right. Continue next Sunday.
All righty.
Talk to y'all then,
boys.
Everybody.
Be safe. Have a good week. Talk to you soon, gents.
Thank you for supporting Smacking Off the podcast on the X's and O's network. Be sure to keep up with our scheduled live casts and other presentations on Facebook at Smackologists or at Smacking Off, and on our YouTube channel at Smacking Off the Podcast.